April 2025. The world trembles once again under the weight of tension. Donald Trump, the embodiment of American protectionism, announces the imposition of reciprocal tariffs on Chinese exports with an astonishing rate of 125%. Economic markets are thrown into shock, and analysts and entrepreneurs around the globe scramble to assess the scale of the looming catastrophe. Beijing cannot calmly observe this situation. Neither economic interests nor national pride allow it. Within 48 hours, China strikes back, imposing strict export restrictions on 7 rare earth elements, which are critical for the United States' high-tech and defense sectors. What will be the consequences? Can the United States survive this blow? Or are we standing on the threshold of a new global economic storm? These questions stir minds on both sides of the ocean. Rare earth elements are not just a strategic resource. They are the foundation of modern civilization. Missiles, radars, guidance systems, smartphones, electric vehicles, even medical equipment. None of it is possible without samarium, gadolinium, terbium, dysprosium, lutetium, scandium, and yttrium. Thus, when China announced the restrictions, shockwaves spread not only through the Pentagon, but also across the entire U.S. tech sector. What lies behind Beijing's maneuver? Let's lay it all out step by step. On April 9th, the White House officially launched the reciprocal tariffs policy, imposing penalty rates up to 49% against 59 countries simultaneously. Essentially, it was an economic bombardment that triggered panic across global markets within 24 hours. One by one, countries were forced into negotiations, bowing their heads. However, the boomerang effect struck the United States faster than anyone anticipated. Prices for essential goods began to surge rapidly. The most illustrative example was ordinary chicken eggs. If in 2024 a dozen cost $2.99, then by April 2025, already $9.99, an increase of 234%. If eggs have tripled in price, what should be expected for electronics, clothing, and automobiles? The decline in purchasing power became immediately apparent. According to the budget laboratory of Yale University, food inflation reached 2.8%, while prices for fresh produce rose by 4%. But all this was just the beginning. The primary goal, suppressing China, seemed attainable, yet reality turned out to be much more complicated. Beijing not only retaliated by raising tariffs to 125%, but also introduced strategic restrictions on the export of rare earth metals. This is a true economic time bomb. Rare earth elements are a key resource for high technology. China controls 40% of the world's reserves and 85% of global processing. In 2023 alone, the Middle Kingdom produced 240,000 tons of rare earth elements, accounting for almost 70% of global volume. Their processing requires not only technology, but also a willingness to accept environmental costs. Why, then, do the United States, despite having their own reserves, depend on China? The answer is simple: economics. The cost of extraction and processing in the United States is several times higher. In the 1990s, American enterprises massively shut down under the pressure of cheap Chinese raw materials. Today, 70% of the rare earth ores mined in the United States are sent to China for processing. And now, Beijing is cutting off that oxygen. The halt in supplies strikes at the very heart of the U.S. defense industry. Aircraft carrier catapults, submarine sonar systems, stealth coatings for the latest bombers and fighters. All of these are now under threat. According to expert estimates, a critical shortage of components could occur within 6 to 9 months. Alternatives? Theoretically possible. Australia, Vietnam, Russia. But restructuring logistics would take years and costs would multiply. Is the Pentagon ready for such a scenario? Judging by the panic in Congress, no. China goes further. It imposes a 34% tariff on all American goods. It adds 16 companies to its export control list. It files a complaint with the WTO. Analysts warn, if China joins forces with other affected countries, Canada, Mexico, Europe, Washington could find itself in economic isolation. What would happen if the United States lost access to the world's largest markets all at once? Then the American economy would choke on inflation, unemployment, and recession. At the same time, the threat of internal crisis is growing. The U.S. national debt is snowballing. According to Moody's estimates, GDP slowdown by the end of 2025 could reach up to 2%. Amid all this turmoil, China demonstrates resilience. A domestic market of 1.4 billion people allows it to compensate for losses through internal demand. Trade with Asia, Africa, and Latin America intensifies. In whose favor will the global balance of power shift? Today, it is increasingly suggested that the United States overestimated its strength. Instead of weakening China, Washington has trapped itself, losing the support of its allies and triggering destructive processes within its own economy. Can the United States maintain global leadership while engaging in open economic warfare on several fronts at once? The question remains open. For now, the consequences of the decisions made in April 2025 are only beginning to unfold. And each new day brings us closer to a reckoning where the stakes will be extraordinarily high. What do you think? Will the United States emerge victorious from this tariff war, or are they preparing their own economic collapse? Share your thoughts in the comments.